road is completely transformed in the sunshine. There's music, there's dance, there's cocktails, and there is food.
What did you experience today as you walked on Atlantic Road? And we're going to talk about it. Okay, so they said joy, sunshine, good energy, community, and creativity. You're outside Atlantic Road from Harlem to Brixton. You know we unload. My man Mike's over there, chillin' on the bench, boys, he be clear. My Latino fam out, yes you know. Ask my granny dancing over there too. Make some noise, Brixton, say hey!
Here are 5 ways we're making London greener in 30 seconds. The beaver is back. We're reintroducing wildlife to London to help nature thrive. We've planted over 500,000 trees since 2016. Our buses are getting greener. We now have over 1,000 zero-emission buses. We're pushing water companies to clean up our rivers and stop sewage from flowing into the Thames. We've helped cut air pollution by nearly a half in central London and are working on making sure every family can breathe cleaner air. Together, we're making London greener for everyone.
It's not about how long we live, but how wide we live, said someone to me as I was trying to cry secretly on a bench in Kilburn. They said, you're just like me, so that means you're different. I pray to the east, you pray to the sky, but in London, we're in the same position. I don't know you, but I'm proud you're my neighbour. So glad you're here with me. You bring different experiences, different wisdoms. You belong here, so be wide here. Being here isn't about origin or intelligence, it's about bringing your elements. Expand yourself with whoever's next to you. Lean on me until we blend skins. Blur yourself so you can focus. The bigger picture includes you. Draw on the human experience so you can illustrate humanity. Humanity starts with hue. Community ends with unity. It's not about how long we live, but how wide we live. About how deeply stitched each of our fibres is. Everybody is London material. Each of us was cut from a different cloth and have become the fabric of a community. No matter where you can trace our threads back to, Timbuktu, Lahore, Hanoi. London means weaving our fibres into stronger fabrics, so our outfit is strong enough to endure the storms and keep us warm. Maybe you're a lake who believed they were just a puddle, befuddled that your ripples could turn into waves. Maybe you think you fell from the sky and landed here by chance, but that means the ground was extremely lucky. We improve spaces by taking them up. The gift is meant to be opened.
I'm so glad that today my colleagues agreed that we will be calling for a 40 decibel limit on tube noise across London.
And I'm delighted today that the Assembly is supporting Battersea Cats and Dogs in their quest to put an end to animal cruelty.
That there are over 130,000 children and young people who live in London who do not have secure immigration status through no fault of their own. We need to be supporting them. I'm really pleased the Assembly has backed my motion today to get the Mayor and the government to do just that.
I'm Caroline Pidgeon. I'm delighted to have proposed a motion about the drug PrEP, which prevents people from getting HIV.
Imagine a place where everyone is free to be who they want to be and love who they want to love. That's London. The richness of our diversity and the community spirit we take into our daily lives is what makes our city so special. When forces seek to divide us, we stand together. In the face of uncertainty, we don't turn on each other, we look out for one another. It's why our city doesn't just stand strong against hate, we shine bright as a beacon of hope. A place where all, regardless of faith, race or background, are welcome, valued and cherished.
We are here in Barking and Dagenham, particularly to see their innovative projects, ones which are based on participation, community.
We did a fantastic site visit to DPD over in Westminster, where they've set up a small base using fully electric vehicles, the first, I think, of its kind, certainly in the UK.
So this is a simplified version of the
More than 100,000 young Londoners now have access to great mentors.
Just to know that no matter what happens, you're going to have someone. That's a really, really important thing to me about having people there for me.
Too many young people in London face barriers to achieving their potential. One-to-one mentoring can be their turning point, helping them avoid negative pathways and create a brighter future.
We know we can't arrest our way out of youth violence. What we can do is invest early before struggles become problems.
I'm committed to working with schools, community groups, local authorities and other partners to ensure young Londoners get the support they need to reach their full potential. Big changes are happening in the busiest parts of our city. Too many Londoners have either been victims of phone theft or theft more generally, particularly here in the West End, causing real trauma and distress. Thanks to £32 million of new funding from City Hall and the Home Office, up to 80 additional officers will be joining the dedicated West End policing team. These officers will focus on the crimes Londoners care about the most, including antisocial behaviour, violence against women and girls, shoplifting and phone robbery. We've already made great progress with reductions in robbery, theft and knife crime since the start of this financial year, but we're not stopping there. We're also expanding or creating 6 new town centre policing teams in the areas worst affected by theft and robbery, and that includes Brixton, Kingston, Ealing, Finsbury Park, Southwark and Spitalfields. It's all about putting officers where they're needed the most. This fresh action will go even further in building a safer London for everyone.
An opportunity to celebrate our tragically lost lives to learn from history.
Celebrating women's achievement is not a day.
While 74 years may have under the guns of the Belfast.
Statistically, I'm not supposed to be.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to People's Question Time. Before we start, please take a moment to look around and note the fire exit nearest to you. In the event of an emergency, please follow instructions given by staff. Please switch your electronic devices to silent mode now, and if you wish to tweet about tonight's event, it's #PQT. This evening, we have 6 topic areas to discuss, and we'll spend up to 18 minutes on each. This is how it works. For each topic, the chair will take 3 questions at a time. The first 2 questions will be taken from those of you here in the audience with your hands raised. The third question will be taken from the live chat forum of our online registered audience participating via the live stream. For each topic, the most liked questions, as voted for by the online registered audience, will be asked. The chair will then direct these 3 questions from each topic to the Mayor and then a London Assembly member. We have no advance notice of the questions. To make sure we get through as many questions as possible and cover a range of issues, duplicated questions will not be asked. Do keep your questions short and on topic, and refrain from abusive or defamatory remarks, as these will not be posted. For those of you here in the audience, if you're able to stand to ask your question, please do this, as it will make it easier for those on stage and the cameras to see you. Please wait for a member of staff with a microphone to reach you before you start speaking. Please keep your questions short so we can get to as many of you as possible, and please ask questions rather than make speeches. To ensure we create a safe environment for everyone here tonight, we will not tolerate abusive or intimidating behaviour. Please also refrain from heckling to ensure that questions can be asked and answered without disruption. Now, with so many of you here in person and online, we won't have the time for everybody to ask a question. So if you don't get yours asked tonight, please do email mayor@london.gov.uk. Please also remember to fill in the feedback form online. There are QR codes around the room for you to scan your device, or go onto our dedicated webpage, london.gov.uk/PQT. And we'll finish tonight at 9 p.m. sharp. And now, everyone, without any further ado, please welcome your chair for this evening, ITV News broadcaster and Loose Women host, Charlene White.
Hello. Thankfully, we got the sound sorted for the most important part of that, and that was introducing me. Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Charlene White. Welcome to those who are here in person, joining us in the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. But equally, thank you so much for those joining us online, who are also logged in to watch this session. The session, of course, is People's Question Time. Now, we'll be shortly joined by Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, and representatives of the London Assembly. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of what the London Assembly actually does, the Mayor and the London Assembly work to improve life for Londoners and to make London a better place for all of you. Tonight is your chance to put questions to the Mayor and the London Assembly members who will be sat here on this panel, and find out exactly what it is that they are doing for our capital and its people. So please first welcome to the stage your Assembly members.
Yeah, keep going.
There we go, just a few papers being exchanged. If you would all like to take your seats, that would be absolutely amazing. And please would you now welcome the Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan. But of course, this time round, we're in the wonderful West London. I'm not biased, I'm South East London, maybe next time I'll be able to do it there. We have with us Assembly Member James Small-Edwards. Can you give us a wave? There you go. He was, of course, the London Assembly member for this area, representing Hammersmith and Fulham. So, for anybody who hasn't done this before, not quite sure how this works, I'm going to talk you through it. We're going to be taking questions on topics in the following order. We have transport, policing and safety, air quality and the environment, housing, and London's economy. So, if there's a little bit of time left after all of those questions, we will use the remaining time at the end to cover anything else that hasn't already been covered. Now, for each topic, we will begin with 2 live questions from you who are physically here in the audience, followed by 1 question from our online audience. And if we have time for additional questions, we will continue in the same way. Again, if this is your first time, if you're a returnee, please remember that for each topic, you have to keep your questions short. It has to be to the point. It can't really be rambling about other stuff. We want to get through as many questions as possible tonight because, of course, it is everybody's opportunity here, both here physically and online, to be able to get their chance to ask the questions that they want answers to. But if we have time for additional questions at the end of each session, we will continue in the same way. I'll take some from the audience physically here, and I'll also take some from the audience who is joining us online. Now, please do listen to the questions and answers with respect. I'm going to respectfully ask you not to heckle or to disrupt this meeting. If this does happen, and you do not stop after I have warned you, you will be asked to leave the event. Again, this event is for an opportunity for Londoners to question those members of the London Assembly and the Mayor. It is not an opportunity for disruption, which means fewer people get to ask their questions. So, how do you ask a question if you're physically here? Right, if you raise your hand, I will randomly select people from the room. And we have our wonderful paddle holders that are here. Give them a wave. Hi. Paddle holders, thank you so much. I will make sure that I direct them to the individuals and I will describe who it is that they need to approach with a microphone. And for those of you who are joining us online, the chat function is for questions only. Comments will not be published. The most popular upvoted question online will be put to our wonderful panel here if that question hasn't already been asked. Don't worry, I've almost finished going through the housekeeping points and then we'll get to the Mayor. So please do submit your questions. If you are joining online, please submit your questions in the correct topic category. The questions submitted will be published a few minutes before the start of the relevant topic. So do not forget to like the ones that you want answered. You can start liking questions for the transport section now, whilst we're doing the introductions. And to the Mayor and the London Assembly members. You are aware of the rules around the use of resources which apply to this event and the code of conduct which applies to them and are asked to be mindful of those requirements. You were all here last time round, all of you were here last time round, and you know I do not take any nonsense when it comes to trying to do things which are not allowed in this session. I will stop you if there's any politicising or political rhetoric or making speeches. What we want you to do here this evening is to answer the questions and answer those questions only. And if you feel as though you're not able to do that, I am afraid I will have to stop you. So, before further ado, before we get to the Mayor, please welcome the Chair of the London Assembly, Len Duval, OBE, to give his opening address.
Fellow Londoners, Mayor, London Assembly members, good evening everyone and welcome to People's Question Time. My name is Len Duval, I chair the London Assembly and it's a pleasure to be joined by many of you both in the room but also online. The London Assembly is the voice of Londoners and our job is to hold the Mayor and his advisors to account and to discuss the matters that are important to Londoners. Today's People's Question Time is the first in the 25th anniversary year, which we continue to recognise throughout the year with various events. For a quarter of a century, we have been standing up for Londoners and asking your mayors both Ken Livingstone, Boris Johnson, and now Sadiq Khan, the questions that you need answers to. Over those 25 years, we've scrutinised those issues that matter most. The tragedy of 7/7, the Assembly made sure that the right lessons were learned about emergent response to the attacks, strengthen our London city's resilience. We campaigned to bring the Olympics to London, and we scrutinised efforts to ensure a positive legacy from the Olympic Games. These are just a few of the topics which we commented on and tried to seek to influence the Mayor in terms of their business. The Assembly has backed the building of the Elizabeth line, now the busiest rail line in the UK, and over many years held decision makers to account over some of the mistakes and overspending that was made during construction. A few things to update you on since we held our last People's Question Time. The Assembly has published its annual report in setting out its work and has carried out over in the past year and highlighted some of the biggest moments over the last 25 years. We have had an extraordinary Assembly meeting to question the Metropolitan Police representatives about plans to reduce the number of police station front counters across London. The Police and Crime Committee have published a report on public order policing, making the number of recommendations, including how best to keep people safe at the Notting Hill Carnival. The Housing Committee has called for action to help leaseholders facing soaring costs of their service charges, along with some of those who've become trapped in the issues of shared ownership. The Environment Committee investigated progress being made to make Londoners a net zero city by 2030, finding the public need to be more involved in decisions that affect their lives. The Fire Committee published its report about the London Fire Brigade's efforts to improve its internal organisational culture, finding good progress has been made, but urging more action and ambition to further strengthen its approach. And finally, the Oversight Committee published its groundbreaking report on the potential impacts of the government devolution proposals for London, with a focus on how we can make the Mayor and the Assembly have the powers they need to deliver for you. You can keep up with our work and see more highlights of our past 25 years of the London Assembly by following our social media channel and watching our meetings at City Hall online. As this marks the 25th anniversary of our creation, we remain as committed as ever to standing up for Londoners. We look forward to listening to you this evening, and so we can help ensure that London's government continues to work for you and your family.
A huge thank you to Assembly Member Duval. Now may I invite the Mayor of London's Sadiq Khan to give his opening address.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to People's Question Time. I want to start by acknowledging what happened on London's streets over the weekend. I know many Londoners, including many from minority communities, are feeling worried. The leaders of the far right are once again attempting to hijack our flag with fear, hatred and division being sown. As Londoners and as proud Brits, I believe we must unite to reject the far right, just as we have many times before. And as Mayor, I promise to continue doing everything I can to challenge those who peddle the politics of fear and division in our city. It's been the honour of my life to serve as your Mayor over the last 9 years, and I'm proud of the progress we've achieved together. We've created the world's largest clean air zone, meaning that millions of Londoners now breathe cleaner air every day. We're tackling the housing crisis head-on, building more new council homes than at any time since the 1970s. We've acted to keep public transport affordable, introducing the Hopper bus fare and freezing bus and tram fares 6 times. We transformed London into a global climate leader, building the largest electric bus fleet in Western Europe, planting over 600,000 trees and investing in clean energy. One victim of crime is one too many, but by investing in the police and in our youth clubs, we've made huge progress in reducing knife crime, reducing theft from the person, personal robbery, burglary, violence with injury, and gun crime. And we've ensured every single child attending a state primary school in London now gets a nutritious free school meal every day. All the while, we've never stopped championing London's incredible diversity, organising events from St George's Day to Diwali, Eid to Easter, Vaisakhi to Hanukkah, St Patrick's Day to Lunar New Year, among others. We're now starting this school year off the back of an incredible summer for our city. We've hosted the biggest ever Wimbledon and London Marathon, the first women's tennis tournament at Queen's for 50 years, and a triumphant homecoming for our Lionesses. Through our Summer Streets Fund, we supported bars and restaurants to offer alfresco dining, enabling thousands of Londoners to enjoy the summer sun and help local businesses thrive. And we've seen Londoners come together and celebrate our diverse communities at events including London Pride, Notting Hill Carnival, and Black on the Square. Of course, we know that without the safety and structure of school, the holidays can be a time where some young people are particularly vulnerable to exploitation and violence. That's why we launched a new £6 million programme to expand positive activities for young Londoners this summer. It's clear that our programmes are having a real impact, with figures released this month showing that this summer saw the lowest number of homicides since we set up London's Violence Reduction Unit, the first of its kind in the country, in 2018. We've had the fewest teenage homicides since 2003 and a 25% reduction in homicides since 2016. Let me end with this. We should be proud of the steps forward we've taken. But I'm the first to acknowledge that we've still got so much more to do. We've already achieved so much for our city over the last 9 years. We've shown that we can face up to difficult problems and deliver for Londoners. So tonight, I reaffirm my promise to you to keep standing up and banging the drum for our city, to keep listening, and to keep working with you to bring about the change we all want to see as we continue to build a fairer, safer, greener, and more prosperous London for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, now it is time to hear your questions, so let's get into it. Our first topic is transport. As I mentioned earlier, I'll take questions in threes, 2 from the live audience here, and the 3rd from the online audience via a live chat. The first hand I saw was over there. Gentleman in the red and blue jumper. If panel number 5 could give him the microphone, please.
Thank you very much. How can blind people who cannot cycle nor drive and can now no longer catch the bus because of floating bus stops that mean they're inaccessible to them travel independently beyond their own local area? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor.
So thank you for your question. I understand the concerns those who are visually impaired, those who are blind, those who are disabled have about what's called colloquially floating bus stops. There are 2 types of floating bus stops. There's the bus stop bypasses and there's the shared use bus borders. So because of the concerns you've articulated, TfL undertook a review of floating bus stops, and they recognise there are some deficiencies around some of these floating bus stops. So 3 big things TfL have done. One is they're reviewing all these shared use bus borders. Secondly, there are remedial works to improve them. And thirdly, they are trying to encourage and change and prosecute those cyclists who may behave in a way that's causing concern to those who are visually impaired. Secondly, the government has announced a pause on bus stop bypasses. So from the date of that pause, TfL is not proceeding with any bus stop bypasses until the DfT have undertaken their review. And I know my Walking and Cycling Commissioner and Deputy Mayor are working with the experts, those who are visually impaired, to make sure those bus stops are safe to those who are visually impaired. Final point, Charlene, to make is the reason why we have these floating bus stops is because in previous years, a disproportionate number of cyclists had been killed or seriously injured or injured in other ways as a consequence of collisions with buses. So this lane makes cyclists safer when it comes to buses, and it's really important to remember the benefits of these floating bus stops to those cyclists who are now much safer than they otherwise would be.
Thank you. Assembly Member Hall. Susan Hall? Did you want to mention?
I'm always happy to talk.
Oh, I thought you motioned to me that you wanted to answer the question. No?
Sorry?
Did you want to add to that answer?
We only get 3 questions at once, which is what we were kind of waiting, and then you can give an answer to all 3 in one go.
We'll take another question from the floor. If we take the gentleman in the blue shirt in the 3rd row back, if we can take paddle number 6, thank you.
Hi there. As a member of Transform Tulse Hill, a community movement advocating for safer roads there, we're really happy that TfL is looking at options for the Tulse Hill gyratory. A lot of people have been injured or killed there in recent years. So the question are, will you in London Assembly support including funding for this project in TfL's next business plan? And secondly, would you be happy to help us arrange a meeting between the local campaign group, our 3 local MPs who are supporting the campaign, and the councillors, to meet with us to see how we can all work together to make Tulse Hill a safer place?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let me take another question from the floor, please. No one in that area over there. If we can take the lady with the light brown hair and the black top, 3rd row from the back. If we can take paddle number 6, please.
Good evening. My name is Faith, and I'm a young social worker, and I just wanted to ask, when it comes to what I do, I have a lot of transportation and have to use a lot of the public transport. With the increasing fares, I know, Mr. Mayor, you said that you had made a few pauses to increasing the fares, but they have increased this year. How do you envision making it more affordable for Londoners, as there's a cost of living crisis which is constantly increasing and making it difficult for people like me who want to help the community and people I work with, but travel is just so expensive. And to be honest, we have one of the most expensive transportation in Europe, and I don't see how the fares match with the kind of transport we've been given. Particularly someone like me who uses Central Line, I haven't seen any improvement on the Central Line, particularly in summer. So I would like to know what you guys are doing about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, you already answered the first question, Mr. Mayor, but the second one was regarding making Tulse Hill safer, and also the 3rd question was about increasing fares and how to make them more affordable for Londoners.
Thanks for those. Thanks for both those additional questions. The first question in this round on safety in Tulse Hill, I'm more than happy to arrange for my team to meet with you. In the front row is my Walking and Cycling Commissioner. At the end of the meeting, he'll come and speak to you. He's seen where you are. Just to remind colleagues, each year in our city, around 3,000 Londoners are killed or seriously injured on our roads. Around 100 are killed. And so we're passionate about making our streets a lot safer, from 20 miles per hour to improving junctions and so forth. So I'll make sure we'll have a chat with you to make sure that's on our radar. We're targeting the most dangerous 75 junctions, but we'll make sure TfL and the council are working with you to make sure we make that part of London safer as well. The final question in this round was around the cost of public transport in London. and the Central Line. I'll deal with both those issues. So since I've been mayor, 6 of the 9 years, I've frozen, as you said, bus and tram fares. We have the cheapest bus fares in the country at £1.75. You can travel as far as you want in London, unlike other parts of the country. And we have another hopper fare, which means you can change buses within an hour or tram and still pay the £1.75, because I recognise the impact on those struggling with the cost of living crisis, and it's the poorest Londoners who use buses. On the Underground, I've frozen fares 5 of the last 9 years because I also recognise how expensive the tube can be. Also in London, unlike other cities across the globe, we cap our fares. So above a certain time, if you use it more than 3 times, your fare is capped for that reason. And also in London, like other parts of the country, children under 11 go free in the tube, children under 18 go free on our buses as well. So we're keeping an eye on trying to keep fares as low as we can, which is really, really important. In relation to your point about the Central Line, there's a very good reason, by the way, why our buses, our tubes, and other infrastructure hasn't had the investment we need. Central Line is one example, which is in 2015, the previous mayor government made a decision to cut altogether revenue support from central government to TfL. And in recent years, we've had very little capital support. That's going to change now because the new government's given TfL a record-breaking north of £2 billion over the next 4 years. So you'll see improvements. Central Line will see improvements. New trains coming on very soon. Piccadilly Line will see improvements. DLR will see improvements. We'll have more electric buses, and that's a consequence of the record-breaking deal from the government. So watch this space, see the improvements in the Central Line, Piccadilly Line, DLR, and other parts of the TfL estate.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Can we go to Assembly Member Ellie Baker, please?
Thanks, Chair. My name's Ellie Baker. I'm Chair of the Transport Committee, so I'm really pleased to hear the questions from the audience. Firstly, to the gentleman who was talking about floating bus stops and access for visually impaired people, it's hugely important to the Assembly, hugely important to the Transport Committee, done an extensive investigation on accessibility and inclusion, and access to the bus and step-free access to the tube network is hugely important. I would salute the Mayor for his commitment to making as many stations step-free as possible and to extending the bus network, particularly in outer London with the Superloop. But particularly on floating bus stops, I've previously called for TfL to pause and review floating bus stops. I'm glad to see that there is a more acknowledgement of the problems these days. Both with the design, there are some really poorly designed, but also so that we can get really good cycling behaviour so that we aren't seeing conflicts. So I look forward to that being an area that we can get more consensus around. And then just really briefly, I wanted to answer on fares. Public transport is so important to keep fares low. Again, the Mayor has been trying to keep bus fares as low as possible because those are the ones that we need for low-income Londoners. But again, the issue with funding was such a problem for so many years, certainly the entire time I've been on the Assembly, and seeing that a good funding deal from the government, particularly that is front-loaded so we can start dealing with those problems that we've seen from the degradation of the system from underfunding. So I'm really hopeful for our network over the next few years and seeing the service that Londoners deserve.
Okay, can we now go to Assembly Member Garrett, please?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Assembly Member Garrett, the member for Croydon and Sutton. Picking up the first point about the floating bus stops. I'm a cyclist myself. I'm very familiar with the problem that they're designed to solve. But it seems to me, after we did all of that work that Ellie was just talking about on the Transport Committee, we looked very closely at this, and I particularly looked very closely at it. And I challenged my fellow cyclists to come up with a way that design could work in a way that doesn't become, frankly, a frightening place for blind and people with mobility difficulties. And I don't think that there is one. That's the conclusion I've come to. So it's a choice between facilitating fit cyclists, perhaps not such a young cyclist as I was, but fit cyclists such as myself, or blind people. And for all that he said earlier, it's my judgment that the Mayor has decided to come down on the side of cyclists, and I don't think the design is going to change, and I don't think the design is going to stop being used. I think his conclusion is that those people who struggle and find those places frightening are just going to have to suck it up. And I don't think that's a good decision, but I think that is the decision that the Mayor has reached, if he were being honest. On the fares, I think this is a real problem. So the Mayor was talking about the additional money that the government has given London Transport this year. The quid pro quo for that was that fares had to go up by 4.6%. That was the imposition nationally on London. The Mayor's fares setting power was effectively removed in exchange for an extra 100 million, which is welcome. What is concerning is that on the horizon is a national business rates review, which sounds like the most exciting and fascinating thing that any government ever did. The problem is over £2,000 million of funding each year goes to Transport for London through business rates. And the mood music nationally is that this business rates review will take money away from London and give it to the regions, which is lovely, I'm sure, for Yorkshire and Wales. But it's very bad news for London, and it could see far more taken away from London Transport funding than has just been given. So it looks like the deal from the government is forced to put up fares and serious risk for a large part of TfL's funding, which in turn will mean service cuts, maintenance cuts, less upgrades and improvements, and probably yet more fares rises. I think, sorry to be the bringer of bad news, I think that is what's on the horizon from this new government.
Okay, Assemblymember Garrett, thank you very much. We had a few technical issues with the online questions, so I'm going to pose as many as I can before this section is done, but I would also like to remind Assembly members to try and keep their answers short so we can get through as many questions as possible. Thank you so much to Harpreet, who's in Croydon, who has said, there is always a lot of focus on transport in inner and central London, but this means that outer London can often be overlooked. What are you doing to ensure that residents in the outer London boroughs can access good transport links? Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for your question. So we from TfL give money to councils. It's their discretion how to spend it. It's called the Local Implementation Plan. What we've done this year is to make sure outer London has a bias towards it. So 60% of the LIP money is now going to boroughs in outer London for them to spend. But we've also, in the recent past, invested in public transport in outer London. Ellie Baker, who's been the chair of the Transport Committee, mentioned a couple of the policies. The Superloop, the express bus service that goes, some years ago, the travel patterns were tended to be, you lived in outer London and you came into the centre. Now we realise that actually people's public transport habits are different. They go from their home to the hospital, to the town centre, and there's more orbital travel. So we've now got, for the first time ever, Superloop buses across London, express buses, and that's been a game changer for those in outer London. A Superloop bus is often the fastest way to get from people's home to destination. We've extended the London Overground to Barking Riverside, really important to that community. That's led to thousands of homes being built, jobs being created, and of course, as the chair of the Assembly, Len Duval, mentioned, the Elizabeth line has been the game changer for east to west connection, not just in outer London, but from Shenfield to Reading as well. The Silvertown Tunnel has been built on budget, on time, again, supporting those Londoners who want to drive. Really important in outer London as well, because they're stuck in traffic. As a consequence, they suffer congestion and they suffer delays. And that's led to an improvement in public transport in outer London as well. For the first year, the buses that go through the tunnel, free travel for Londoners. You can take your cycle through the tunnel as well, because we recognise in outer London in the past, there's not been investment in public transport there needs to be. We want to encourage people to use public transport, to walk and to cycle. Yeah. So one of the other things we're doing, final point, Charlene, is investing a huge amount of money to build cycleways in outer London as well, to encourage people to cycle safely, which is really important.
Okay, we've only got a couple of minutes, and I know that Assembly Member Caroline Russell's been waiting for a while to answer.
Thank you. I'm Caroline Russell, Green Party, London Assembly Member, also a member of the Transport Committee. Outer London has always been a bit left out, both in terms of safe conditions for walking and cycling, enough pedestrian crossings and things like that. but also in terms of public transport options. I actually used the Superloop this afternoon to go down to South London, to Blackheath, and it was amazing the way it just whisked me straight through. So I think, you know, there are real changes happening, but I think the really important thing that we've got to think about, and it goes back to the first question that the person was raising about the floating bus stops, and it is about how we can make sure our streets all over our city, from outer London right through to the centre, that everyone is able to get around independently and safely, and that we reduce the number of people who are being killed and seriously injured on our roads. And a lot of the measures that the Mayor is bringing in, things like 20 mph speed limits and extra bus lanes, those are there not to make everyone's day more annoying. They're there to actually stop people being killed and seriously injured. And the last one of these PQT meetings, we heard from a woman whose husband had been killed while crossing a road. And it was absolutely devastating. Now, there are around about 100 families a year who lose a family member on our roads. And I think we just need to really think about how we talk about road death and injury, how we make sure that our city works for everyone, that it's inclusive, that anyone with disabilities is able to get around safely, but also that someone who's cycling with their kids to school is confident that they're not going to be frightened off going on their bikes again the next day. So, yeah, outer London, we need much more public transport, but also we need to really think about the purpose of some of the measures that the Mayor is bringing in.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member Russell. Assembly Member Hirani, you've got 30 seconds if you still would like to answer.
Thank you, Chair. And I am an optimist when it comes to what we have coming to the future in Outer London. So I represent Brent and Harrow, which is an Outer London constituency on the Assembly. And the Mayor has a commitment to have half of all tube stations step-free by 2030. Now, our job as Assembly members is to hold them to account to that, but there's an inbuilt bias in that as well, because a lot of the stations within central London, if you look at where we have step-free access at the moment, it is in the centre. So naturally, I'm hopeful that that means when we look at the next wave of stations and investment in TfL, in the TfL network, that will be in outer London. There's currently an announcement which the Mayor made a few months ago where 30 stations are being looked at for step-free, which will narrow down to 15 for feasibility study. So I'm hopeful in looking out for the ones across Brent and Harrow, but then Superloop's already been mentioned, and also the future transport projects that we need investment in. In my part of the world, it's the West London Orbital, and having those new connections and new transport networks and infrastructure will make a huge difference to people also living here.
Okay, thank you very much. Not quite 30 seconds, but it was short. Right, we are out of time on transport. If we didn't get to your question, please do visit the People's Question Time page on the london.gov website, which tells you how you can submit one in writing. Right, moving on to policing and safety now, which includes any questions about community safety, policing and the London Fire Brigade. Again, I will take questions in threes. I will remember this time. Please raise your hand. I see there are many hands already raised in order to be able to ask a question. We can take three from the audience. A gentleman in the white shirt who's third row from the back. Paddle number 6, please.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, in your manifesto last year, you promised Londoners that in every single borough we would have a police front counter. Just months later, you have now breached that manifesto commitment. On top of that, you promised us 1,200 more police officers. That's another manifesto breach. We can add to that your Greenbelt policy and your promise for zero strikes. There's a whole wave of manifesto breaches. How in God's earth can any Londoners believe a word you say with so many breaches going on? And on top of that, Mr. Mayor, will you be backing the 2,500 Londoners who signed the petition presented by Assembly Member Susan Hall last week for you to keep the counter at Kensington Police Station open? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, can we take another question from the audience, please? If we can take... Right, yeah, the gentleman in the blue jumper, third row from the front. Can we take paddle number 6, please? Third from the front. Third from the front. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. I wanted to ask about arrests. Mr. Mayor, will you apologise to hundreds of thousands of Londoners that you've just called far right for protesting this weekend? You say nothing about the thousands who get arrested at Palestine Action protests. You say nothing about the 400+ people who were arrested this year at Notting Hill Carnival, the stabbings, the deaths and the rapes. So will you apologise? Because yes, there was violence against the police. No one is saying that's okay. That is not okay. But there's conflicting reports about who actually committed that violence, and some reports say it was actually by Stand Up to Racism and anti-protesters. So will you apologise to British Londoners, which is part of our diversity? We're such a brilliant, diverse capital, because all you ever do is disagree with people and call them far right. Why are they far right? Is it because they love the Union Jack? Is it because they love this country?
Okay, I think you've answered the question now. Thank you very much.
Does that...
If you would like to take a seat, thank you very much for asking your question. And when we are asking questions, they do also have to be based on fact, and there were no deaths at Notting Hill Carnival this year. Can we get to a question? We can take a third question from the audience. If we take the gentleman in the black jumper and grey shirt, paddle number 2, please.
My name is Clive Phillip. I'm the founder of the Mangrove Seal Bar. And my question is about Carnival. I would like to know who is responsible for any problems in the Carnival, like crowd damage, because the whole thing is the police says it's a hailstorm waiting to happen. And as far as I understand, the police and the council is who controlling the Carnival, and they have a puppet committee there that have no power, no say, or anything. They just do what the police tell the council and what the council tell them to do. So I want to know, when anything happens, who is responsible for any trouble happening in Carnival?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we have got questions regarding whether or not Londoners can believe things that you said in your manifesto, such as every borough having a police-run counter. A question regarding apologising to Londoners for calling protesters far right. And then the final question was regarding who is responsible for problems like crowd control at the Notting Hill Carnival.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for those 3 excellent questions. Look, the first thing is I've always been direct with Londoners about the consequences of 14 years' worth of cuts. We've lost £1.1 billion from the Met Police budget. That's a third of core funding cut from the Met Police's budget because of central government decisions. From City Hall, we've more than doubled the amount of money the Met Police receives. It's now £1.16 billion. Now, the previous Mayor took a decision to close more than 80 front office counters at the same time as stripping back neighbourhood policing. What I've done as Mayor is invested in neighbourhood policing, funding 1,300 police officers and 500 PCSOs. But what the Commissioner presented me with was the option of having trained police officers in front counters that are hardly used, or using that funding for police officers in our community's Kensington front counter is used on average 3 times a day to report crime. Hammersmith front counter 4 times a day. Neighbourhood police officers, though, are really important in terms of crime fighting, but also giving the public confidence as well. More than 90% of crimes are now reported either online, by telephone, or to a police officer. And when the facts change, I change my mind. I'm not sure what you do, but I think it's really important to support the police in having more police officers on the ground. In terms of the second question, look, I think our flag is something that should be a symbol of unity, not a symbol of hatred. And I've been quite clear. There were tens of thousands of there were tens of thousands of people at the march on Saturday who were not far right. but the march was organised by the far right. We can't run away from the fact that Stephen Yaxley Lennon organised the march. He's a far-right activist and a violent racist with a string of criminal convictions. We can't escape the fact that on the platform, Elon Musk was on the platform of the big screens. What did Elon Musk say? You either fight back or you die. That's the truth. Also, the platform was a French politician who's been convicted for racial hatred. Also was a Spanish influencer who said the government are taking our money and financing, and I quote, the great demographic replacement of our nation. Also, by the way, was a Dutch far-right commentator with a T-shirt saying generation remigration. Also was a far-right Belgian politician. By the way, they don't mind foreigners if they're racist. It's only when they're people of colour that they don't like foreigners. So this, and what is this?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you can go on, but we do also have to get to the other questions that were asked and allow the other Assembly members to answer.
And the third question, look, sir, you will know the history of Carnival. Carnival arose from, black Londoners in the Notting Hill area being concerned about their rights being ameliorated and wanted to celebrate the Caribbean culture. It's not organised by the government, it's not organised by the mayor, it's not organised by the councils, it's organised by the community. There's an organising committee that organised the carnival, and it is so successful that it's become the victim of its success. It's the biggest street carnival in Europe, the second biggest street carnival in the world. And I say in a respectful way, because of its success, there are challenges. There are challenges with crowd safety. There are challenges in relation to sometimes organised criminals go and target people at the carnival. So the two local councils, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea and Westminster Council, deserve massive credit for stepping up to support the organisers, and we've stepped up as well in City Hall. I could put my head in the sand and say nothing to do with us. That'd be irresponsible. So I've stepped up to support the carnival going forward, but also over the last few years. And I want to work with the organisers to make sure the carnival continues to be a great celebration and doesn't have the negative connotations it sometimes can have.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Gareth Roberts, please.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Gareth Roberts. I'm one of the Lib Dem Assembly members and the constituency member for Richmond, Kingston and Hounslow. I fully agree with the issue regarding the breaking of a manifesto commitment relating to the 24-hour, 7 days a week police front counters. We often hear that we are policed with consent in this country. We are also governed with consent, and when people give their consent to a mayor to take a third term, they will look at what he's offering in his manifesto and hope that he sticks to it. Now, the mayor has said at the previous mayor's question time and said again tonight that when the facts change, he changes his mind. Well, there was no money for policing a year ago when he made the manifesto commitment, so that fact hasn't changed. There were very few people using police front counters to report crimes. Many more using it for other reasons, but very few a year ago when he made the manifesto commitment. So he says that when the facts change, he changes his mind. My question to him would be, what facts have materially changed? I'll take that even smattering of applause. It's all good. And the other thing is that we only found out about this in July. Last week and today, we found out from the mayor and the deputy mayor that they've been having discussions with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner as far away as November of last year, behind closed doors, that closures might be an issue. And that's fine, but they should have been far more upfront with us at the time that they knew, then we could have been prepared. On the subject of whether police stations or police front counters get used regularly, I would add that the Titanic lifeboats got used once, but they were bloody useful.
Well, I think that's probably the first time that the Titanic has been compared to police counters before. Assembly Member Susan Hall.
Thank you, Charlene. It's somewhat typical that the Mayor started his answer by blaming somebody else, because that's what he does all the time, and some of us are sick to death of it. So if I start off I agree with my colleague here about front counters. We're on the Police and Crime Committee together, and we have been fighting this from the minute we knew about it. The Deputy Mayor knew about it as well in November. It's such a shame that they don't think to share this with us, because we'd have started campaigning against it straight away. So my colleague has answered beautifully over that, and we will continue to fight because people want their front counters. The Mayor promised he'd keep them, but you cannot rely on anything he says. And then we go to the far right. Well, let me tell you, we are sick to death of being called the far right. The number of people that went on that march this weekend, they're not political at all. They're just very, very fed up. They're very fed up with this Labour government and the problems they're causing. They've been fed up with this Labour mayor for a very long time, and they wanted to walk through the streets so that people would know. And the fact that they're carrying, Union Jacks or the Union flag or the St George's flag, that doesn't mean anything other than that they're proud of their flag, and as am I, let me tell you. They're not far right, and I wish you'd stop calling people far right. This is what he always used to do to opponents.
Okay, Susan Hall, are you going to be answering the question?
I am.
I don't believe you are answering the question.
Well, I think I am, but I'll move on to the next bit if you like. Carnival. Now, the police have to be there at Carnival, 7,000 of them on each day. It's cost us all an absolute fortune. Thank God they had the foresight to do lots of raids before the Carnival, because on one of them they found, or in several of them, 11 firearms, which they had intelligence to say they were going to be taken to the Carnival. Had they have done, I suspect we would have had murders this year. Thank God we didn't, and I put that down to damn good policing before the event started. We have to have these things. I think there were 5 stabbings. The amount of police officers that are injured every single year is nothing short of a disgrace. No police officers should ever be attacked, whether it's a march, a festival, a carnival. It's outrageous. And this I will agree with the Mayor on, because I've been saying it too. It is a victim of its own success. The roads are not wide enough to keep the carnival there. And every year you just hold your breath and hope that nothing fatal is going to happen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Susan Hall. Right, I'm going to go to an online question because they're back working again. This is the question that had the most likes online. As a woman, I sometimes still feel nervous walking home at night. What are you doing to tackle violence among women and girls so that women feel safe wherever they are, Mr. Mayor?
Well, thanks for that question online. I mean, this is one of the biggest challenges we face as a society. Each 3 days across our country, a woman is killed at the hands of a man. We have an epidemic of violence against women and girls. So from City Hall, we've invested more than £230 million to tackle the issue of violence against women and girls. The enforcement side, we're using a terrorist tactic called V100. The most violent offenders, the police are going after. They've made record numbers of arrests. As a consequence, rape charges are up, and other charges of domestic abuse, domestic violence are up. We're using the prevention orders the government's given, and the police have now set up in every BCU an anti-stalking and a predator unit as well to take action against those at the enforcement side. At the prevention side, we've got to change boys' attitudes in particular in primary school and secondary school. So we're doing relationship training. We're working with boys in particular and girls in relation to what is a healthy attitude towards girls. We're trying to make sure children know how to call out red flags at a young age, so boys don't grow up to be misogynistic adults. Girls have the confidence to say no as well. Working with councils to improve the public realm, so you have well-lit streets. We also, in public transport, are taking pioneering steps. We have 77,000 cameras on the public transport network. We're now installing cameras at bus stops as well, because women have expressed concern around what happens at bus stop. And I was really pleased and proud that Gina Martin, a Londoner, campaigned to change the law to make upskirting a criminal offence, because I know my experience as a man is different when it comes to the experience girls and women have in terms of certain offences across our city and our country. But look, we've got to make sure there's a whole society approach to tackling this issue, and I'm determined to make more progress here.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Garrett.
I just want to say very briefly, in answer to the first question about the manifesto. So occasions like this, sometimes there can be a bit of political grandstanding, occasionally can creep in. Most of the work of the London Assembly scrutinising the mayor is the sort of careful, detailed work that people like to hope that politicians do but rarely see. So I want to give a plug. Tomorrow morning, the Budget and Performance Committee, which I chair, from 10 o'clock, we have a big, long list of all of the mayor's manifesto promises, and we'll be going through them, challenging his senior team about how they're delivering on all of them and how they're going to get them done, if at all, by the end of the term. So tune in on our YouTube channel or on the London Assembly website tomorrow from 10 o'clock, and you'll see, I think, a very exciting meeting.
Oh, I'm not sure where you stand regarding adverts during this bit, but you've done it anyway. Assembly Member Garrett. Assembly Member Emma Best.
Thank you, Chair. I'll come first to the question around violence against women and girls. And I think every woman knows that feeling of your familiar walk home where you look for those safe spots that you know you'll see. That's the stations that might be still open and lit up, the busy high streets, which unfortunately we might come into the economy section where the nightlife's been hammered, so those are no longer. And the other safe spot that you normally see is a police station. And that is something, again, that the mayor is threatening us with losing. And so to come onto that police station counter, here's the really important bit. The last bit of data we have shows that only a fifth of visits to a police station are to report a crime. There's a whole host of other reasons for update on serious crime, missing persons, why people visit police stations. But the Met has not taken any data on how many visits we have at the moment. We just know that we're quoting the reported crime figure, and that is it, but that doesn't even account for a fifth of visits. And the mayor is not telling you the sort of crimes that are reported. He's saying 5% of crimes are reported at a police desk, but he is not telling you that 14% of rapes are reported at a police front desk. The mayor cannot tell you how many people visit a police station, and he cannot tell you how much each closure of a police station is costing. We have not been told any of this information, and that is what you as the public should have. The other information that I think is really important around police stations is where do people have to go? This is pushing people in outer London into inner area Londons on bail. They'll be having to travel over an hour to sign for bail. These are people that don't necessarily have committed a crime. These are also people that have moved away from areas to get away from violence, to get away from old lifestyles, and we're pushing them back into that lifestyle with this proposal. Okay. Now, on the final point, if I can, Chair, just briefly, when it comes to flying the flag, I think it doesn't matter if you've been here for 5 days or 5 generations. We should all be proud of our country, because when we're proud of our country, we're proud of our communities. When we're proud of our communities, we look after our communities. And so I think if you're on the left, the right, the centre, you should want to fly the British flag with pride. And I hope the mayor looks to fly it more proudly as well.
Okay, we're out of time on policing and safety. We're now going to move on to air quality and the environment. We'll take a couple of questions from the audience and one from the live chat. So who would like to ask a question about air quality and the environment? If we can have the lady in the grey coat and navy blue striped top, if we can have paddle number 2, please. If you could raise your hand so they know where they're going. Thank you very much. There we are. It's almost at you. There you go.
Hi, desire to inquire concerning the environment. In a sense, sometimes when I'm walking by the pavement, I usually observe and analyze bins, and there's no space, and then sometimes I have to walk through the road to avoid coming in contact with the bins. And this second question is concerning smoking. Quite sensitive to smoking, and sometimes when you're waiting on the bus stop, there are smokers. Even if they find you there, they do not have the kindness or courtesy to move away and consider someone who's not a non-smoker. And I've been suffering from neurological attacks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I take another question? If we can take the individual that is, I think got a hat on just by you, paddle number 8. Can't quite see quite so clearly. There you go.
Hello there. Now, we're seeing a lot of crime. I see a lot of young people in bicycles in particular. And TfL, well, they go through ticket barriers, and they don't pay. They're fare dodging. And there's rubbish everywhere strewn on streets. The streets are not safe for cyclists. The roads are not safe. And also with cars too. A lot of people, there are more people who are dying and being hit, who are young, because the roads are not safe for them to cycle. So, Mayor, I don't know if you have any plans to improve the roads so that people maybe to have a separate cycle path, maybe something where they could cycle at a lane that's above, perhaps, and have cars underneath. So it's safer that the road usage is separated from car users to those who are cyclists as a way to increase safety for those who are cycling, especially the young people who cycle.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've got a question here from a parent who's online. Thank you so much to everybody that's getting involved online with the questions for today's session. As a parent, I'm really worried about the impact of poor air quality on my children's health and learning. Can you tell us what you are doing to address the immediate and long-term impacts of air pollution in London's schools? So I will run through those questions for you, Mr. Mayor, before you answer. That's regarding having bins on the road and having to try and walk past those bins on the road, people smoking in public when they're around people who are non-smokers, and also in terms of bicycle lanes for young people, especially how to make cycling safer for young people, and then finally about poor air quality and children and learning.
Can I thank all those questions? So the first question, actually in relation to the consequence of bins and you having to go into the road, is linked with the last question about litter and making our streets cleaner. So look, basically 95% of roads in London are controlled by councils, not by City Hall. 32 boroughs, and the corporation control those pavements and the roads. And they're doing a really good job trying to encourage us to throw litter in the bins rather than on the streets, or put it in our pockets if we're good citizens. Sometimes when the pavement is narrow, it leads to the challenges you've raised, which is you've got to walk around the bin often into the road and it's not safe. From City Hall to TfL have been invested in widening the pavements where it's possible to encourage people, as Caroline said, to walk and cycle and create a better environment. And by the way, it also helps shops, because more people go into shops if they're walking or cycling as well. I'll take on board your comment and speak to councils about being cognizant of the consequence of bins in terms of discouraging people to walk if they're narrow pavements. Smoking is not allowed on our buses, but it is allowed outdoors. And so again, let me think about what we can do to discourage what can be perceived as antisocial behaviour inside a bus shelter by signage and so forth. Can I take that away and think what we can do, bearing in mind the dangers of passive smoking at the points you've made? The question from the woman over here. So you raised a number of issues. Firstly, look, fare evasion is an issue that concerns all of us who are law-abiding citizens. The good news is we're reducing year on year the numbers of people who are not paying their fares. It was north of 4%. It's gone down to 3.9% last year, 3.5% this year. More money's been invested in enforcement officers, penalty fares, prosecutions, and inspectors to bring that down even more. Just by way of fact, fare evasion in London is less than New York and Washington, less than Manchester and Newcastle in the UK, still too high though. That's why we're taking more action to get more people to pay fares. You're absolutely right though, that one of the reasons why people are nervous cycling is they don't feel safe. And so we've got to be building more cycleways to encourage people to cycle. Good news, we've increased more than fourfold the amount of cycleways in London since I became mayor, and we're investing even more in cycleways, and as Caroline said, supporting councils to have 20 miles per hour and encouraging people to use their bikes. Another piece of good news, we've managed to increase the number of Londoners walking or cycling using public transport to now 64%. We're going to get it to 80% by 2041. We're only going to do it if we make cycling safer for people, widen our pavements, and keep public transport fares down and improve service, which is what I'm committed to doing. And Charlie, the final question is in relation to quality of air. One of the main reasons why the air inside schools is dangerous And by the way, you can't see it, nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter. It's invisible, but it leads to children having stunted lungs forever, adults having a whole host of health issues from asthma, cancer, heart disease, dementia. We've made rapid progress cleaning up our streets, roadside emissions down by more than 54%. We've reduced air pollution in central London by more than 50%, in London by a quarter, out of London by 21%. And what Mete is doing, the Deputy Mayor for Environment, working with schools to have air quality monitors inside schools, to monitor the air inside schools, and then we're funding initiatives inside schools to clean up the air, including, with the government support, initiatives for them to be reliant upon solar and renewable rather than fossil fuels, which brings the cost down of the bills they pay. It's a really important issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Assembly Member Joanne McCartney.
Thank you. I represent Enfield and Haringey and are a member of the Labour group on the Assembly. And the issue of air quality and children's health is really important. And the Mayor's talked about some of the initiatives that he's undertaken. And can I say, when I visit my local schools that have benefited from those initiatives, the impact is really stark. You know, visiting one of my schools recently who'd been given funding by the Mayor via the local council to stop traffic passing the school during drop-off and pick-up time, where parents were able to congregate safely on the pavement because there was no traffic going past, and the school head teacher told me that no longer could she taste the smell of or smell fumes as she was welcoming children in the morning, and that's the School Streets programme. You know, the ultra-low emission zone means that 80% of Londoners now are no longer breathing toxic air, and we've seen great reductions in that, which has an impact on children's development. Their lungs are no longer stunted and they can breathe cleaner air, and we know that bad air quality also is linked to cardiac disease, and increasingly we're finding it's linked to other diseases such as dementia. The other things we're doing around air quality around schools is the programme to green our schools, and I've seen green walls and new planting to reduce traffic noise but also pollution from entering playgrounds. You know, these initiatives together are having a really big impact on the lives of our children and their families, and I just want to applaud the Mayor for doing that, because it is making a real difference on the ground.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to take another question from online. With climate change causing more extreme weather, what steps have you taken to make London more climate resilient? I'm particularly worried about schools and businesses and exactly how they will adapt.
Thanks for that question. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face. How do we adapt our city and make it more resilient to the consequences of climate change? So in some months in the recent past, we've had in 2 hours, the rain we get in 3 months of flash flooding is an issue. An example of how we're responding to that is we're supporting those homes that are in basements and undergrounds and so forth to adapt them, but also give them advice what to do in advance of a weather warning, that flash flooding. Making sure there's less surface water running off into our sewers. Making sure more drainage is sustainable urban drainage. Also, Charlene, we're having record heat waves. What can we do? Well, we can adapt our city by planting more trees that is shading. We can design our buildings so they, bigger windows, good for summer, but also we can make sure we design them so they're warmer in winter as well, and they have cheaper bills at the same time. Over the course of the last few years, we have installed more than 100 water fountains across our city, but also had deals with shops and restaurants to allow people to fill up their water for free, water refill as well. Other things we can do in relation to our cities, learning from what other hot cities do. And it's really important that we understand climate change is real. It is man-made, by the way. And so we've got to do a number of things. Firstly, make sure the temperature doesn't rise any further than it's predicted to do so, but take steps to adapt our city to make it resilient to the consequences of climate change. Final point, Charlene, every summer in our city now, we're getting more and more excess deaths with older people because of heat waves. And at the same time, we're going to be supporting the London Fire Brigade because I'm afraid the bad news is the fire brigade are just putting out fires that are having to do with flooding, they're having to deal with wildfires and so forth. City Hall, we're investing in record sums in our fire brigade to adapt them as well so they can respond to the consequences of wildfires, heat waves and flash flooding.
Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you very much, Charlene, and thank you to the questions. I think, firstly, on the resilience point, we used to, and I used to run a charity where I had to think about where can we find warm spaces for people who can't afford to heat their homes over the winter time. Now we're in a situation where we're having to think about where do we find cool spaces for them to be during the summer. And look, imagine this, right? The summer that we've just had, the heats that we had. Imagine that's the hottest summer you've ever lived through. But imagine that's the coolest summer you will ever live through for the rest of your life. That is what is going to happen. That's a distinct possibility. That is a sign to all of us in this room and outside that we are living in the middle of a climate emergency. And we can't afford to tackle the climate crisis on our own. We've got to do that by bringing people together. And so that question that we had online about what do we do for our next generation is really critical. I'm a parent of 2 boys in a West London school, in West London schools. And I know that toxic air has killed, on average, about 4,000 people every year across London. 4,000 Londoners are dying prematurely because of toxic air. But this mayor has shown leadership, has introduced the ULEZ, and in a borough like Hammersmith and Fulham has actually reduced the toxic particulates that cause asthma, that cause cancer, that's potentially been linked to dementia by 35% since 2019. I think that's something to celebrate, but it's something that we continue to need to work through. And so I'm proud to be able to say to my sons that we've been the first generation, they'll be the first generation to benefit from significantly cleaner air. But we still need to go further. And earlier this year, Mate Coban, the Deputy Mayor, announced and launched a £12 million fund to support, dare I say it, grassroots organisations to help us achieve those ambitions. But he's also announced earlier this year £2 million for Greener Schools programme, which, as has been said, air monitors, solar panels, and as I've been to a school in Hillingdon, right next to Heathrow, they are planting hundreds of trees around their playground to make sure that they are protected both from noise and from air pollution.
Amazing. Thank you very much. But I will reiterate again, can you keep your answers short, please? We can get as many questions in as possible. But that's the end of the section on air quality and the environment. Now, if we don't manage to get to your question tonight, I'm trying to get through as many as possible, which is why I'm trying to keep our Assembly members' answers a little bit shorter. Please do submit one online. It should be answered within 20 working days. But we're going to move on to housing now. I'll take the first 2 questions from the audience. If we can get the lady that's right in the middle there with a headscarf on, if we can take paddle number 5. Can you see her? Thank you.
Over 330,000 households in London are on council housing waiting lists, with councils spending £4 million daily on temporary accommodation. Meanwhile, 35% of children in London grow up in poverty. What are you doing to provide families with stability and give children a safer and more secure future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Had another question from the audience. If we can have the gentleman in the blue jumper that's right by you, paddle number 3. If you could keep your hand up, so paddle number 3 knows where to go. Thank you.
Thank you. With the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act 2024, it's still requiring 50% of the qualifying leaseholders to support the right to manage claim. How is that realistic or fair, especially in London, with most of the flats sold to overseas investors? That affect shared ownership owners or people, affordable flats that are effectively at the mercy of managing agent exorbitant fees. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you very much. And we'll take one from online. Having lived in the borough for over 20 years and working for the NHS, why is it difficult to get on the property ladder? So I'll go through those for you. The first question was regarding providing stability for children when we have so many families waiting on council housing waiting lists. A question regarding affordable flats, shared ownership and leaseholders. And finally, about trying to get on the property ladder when you work for the NHS.
No, I think housing is the biggest challenge facing our city. We face a housing crisis. I'm somebody who was raised on a council estate. I know the difference council housing can make. It gave my parents the security of tenure, knowing they weren't going to be evicted without proper notice, but also the rent was affordable, which meant my mum and dad could put money aside to save for a deposit for fulfilling their dream of being homeowners. Unfortunately, what's happened is over the last 40 years, we've been selling off council homes under the Right to Buy scheme and not replacing them. So the supply of council homes has diminished and the demand has gone up. Basic economics, which has meant we have a housing crisis. People can't afford to live in London with decent jobs, which is why the numbers you've said, temporary accommodation, those who are homeless have gone up and up and up and up. What we need to do, frankly speaking, is increase the supply of affordable homes. So what I did, one of the first things that I did as mayor is to throw in the bin the previous definition of an affordable home the previous mayor had. I call an affordable home one that is a council home, one where you pay London living rent, a third of average earnings, or, and I'll come to shared ownership, part by part rent. The good news is over the last 20, 30 years, councils have lost the expertise how to build a home because governments weren't giving them any support. They're now building up the capacity to build homes. So all councils now in London have started building council homes. We're now building record numbers of council homes, more since the 1970s. We still want to go much, much more further. We've now got a deal from the government. They're going to grant London £11.7 billion over the next few years so we can start turning this tank around to build the homes we need. In the meantime, we've got to fix the private rental market. And so again, the government's announced policies to try and help fix that in relation to the quality of accommodation, in terms of having open-ended tenancies and removing no-fault evictions, but it's going to be a challenge, and you're spot on. In every classroom in London, on average, 1 out of 21 children is in temporary accommodation. That can't be right, and so it really is a problem that worries me in terms of the next generation of Londoners, people of your generation who can't afford to live in London. The second issue is linked with the last issue in relation to homes. So look, many Londoners who dream to be homeowners couldn't afford the deposit to buy freehold, and so did shared ownership, part by part rent, not realising that actually their dream of being a homeowner would end up being a nightmare for the reasons you've alluded to. We've got to change the law around leaseholds. The leasehold law is just not fit for purpose in terms of ground rent, service charges, and all that shared ownership and leaseholds entail. The good news again, we've got a change in government, and they're promising change in relation to leasehold, which is much, much needed. And from conversations that they're doing for housing Tom Copley's had with the government, they are serious about changing the law here. It can't come soon enough for people like you who are suffering as a consequence of this. You can't even sell your home sometimes because of service charge, ground rent, and so forth. And the third question online, Charlene, is so important. So look, I mentioned council housing, and we're building record numbers. The problem is NHS workers are not eligible for council housing for a variety of reasons. So we've got to build what I call intermediate housing. And again, what we've done now is we've now got a new sort of home called key worker housing. We've consulted on it, and the new housing we're going to be building, Charlene, will have an allocation for key workers, and that includes NHS workers. We've done a deal with North Middlesex Hospital, so some of the surplus land there will be built for NHS workers, but the bad news is it will take some time for us to make up 30, 40 years of supply not meeting demand.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Thomas Turrell.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to attempt to answer all three of these questions in a single answer. And that's, I think, what we have to do actually is look beyond what's going on. The housing market is completely broken. It's no longer a ladder where people are moving up to different rungs. And I think that's what, and we've got to be honest about the fact that this goes beyond numbers alone. In the council housing sector, we're now stuck in a situation where you have councils bidding against buyers and renters, which is driving up the price for everyone. We now have too few landlords. I've been a London renter for 15 years. I've seen the best and I've seen the worst of the London renter. And despite earning a good salary, I still don't see myself becoming a homeowner in the near future. And what we have to do to address this and to address sky-high rents is we've got to start trying to keep some of these landlords in the market, because the exodus of landlords is adding pressure to temporary accommodation. It's meaning people are paying more rent so they can't then move into home ownership themselves. We've got to address why so many developers are getting their planning permission, but they're not then completing the work. We've got to understand what are the hurdles that developers are facing that are then blocking the homes we need from getting built. We have to build the type of homes that Londoners need. The first-time buyer has changed. It's no longer someone in their early 20s trying to buy a 1 or 2 bed flat that they're going to sell in a couple of years' time. It's now someone in their mid to late 40s looking to buy a forever home that they will grow into. Yet developers are still building studio flats, 1 bed flats, 2 bed flats, and these then aren't selling, which is why they then get away. So we've got to address that. And my final point is that shared ownership has become a failed model. So many people are now trapped in shared ownership who should be, they get it as their first chance of buying their own home. They get a stake in their home, but then they're charged sky-high rents, they're then charged sky-high maintenance fee. They then can't sell the property on to buy a place that they fully own. We've got to address these underlying issues. If we just keep fixating on numbers, we'll never fix what's truly going on in the housing market.
Okay, thank you. Assembly Member James Small-Edwards.
Thank you, Charlene, and good evening, everyone. My name is James Small-Edwards, and I am the London Assembly Member for Hammersmith and Fulham, Kensington and Chelsea, and Westminster, so it's great to be on home turf tonight. I just want to answer the question about temporary accommodation and housing. As the questioner mentioned, we have 1 in 23 children in London who are statutory homeless living in temporary accommodation, 1 person in every London classroom. We have median rents over £2,200 in the private rented sector. We have £4 million a day being spent by councils on temporary accommodation which often isn't temporary and often isn't in very good condition. Over £1 billion a year of council taxpayers' money often going to private landlords to house people in not very good situations. So the scale of the problem is really huge. In terms of why we arrived at this problem, well, one of the reasons was that council housing wasn't invested in over many, many decades. During the last year of Boris Johnson's tenure, there were 3 council homes in the pipeline in London. Not 300, not 3,000, 3 council homes. Now, I'm glad since this mayor's come in, we've had a completely different approach when it comes to council housing, with over 32,000 homes for social rent being started under this mayor, meaning the highest level of house building for social rent since the 1970s. But whilst lots have been done, there's still a lot more to do. And I'm glad we now have a government that, instead of abandoning house building targets, which is what we saw under the last government, is actually investing in affordable housing, giving us the biggest ever affordable housing programme settlement, 10 years, £11.7 billion. So lots done, lots more to do, but I'm glad that we've got a mayor and a government who recognise the scale of the problem and are stepping up to the plate.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll take a question from online. What are you doing to help people forced to sleep on our streets, Mr. Mayor?
So it is heartbreaking when you walk around the 5th or 6th richest city in the world and see people sleep in rough. So we've done a number of things to address this issue. We've set up rough sleeping hubs. There are now 5. And over the last 9 years, we've taken off our streets 18,500 rough sleepers. 75% are off for good. And they're off for good because what we're doing is providing wraparound support to those who we take off the streets. Sometimes they could have mental health challenges. There could be alcohol dependency, drug dependency, and they need wraparound support. At the same time, we'll make sure we're building the homes that people who've been sleeping rough need to make the transition, sometimes supported home, sometimes independent living. The brutal reality is it's not helped by the fact that we've had changes over the last 14 years in housing benefit rules, people from across the country not unreasonably coming to London, bright lights, big city, but also challenges with those who have got no recourse to public funds in the support we can give them. James Small-Edwards mentioned a change of attitude over the last 12, 13 months with a change of government. Again, for the first time in my 9 years of mayoralty, I've had meetings with ministers, never happened before, to discuss how we can work together to end rough sleeping. And here's the good news. We've done it before. Those of us of a certain age remember Cardboard City in Waterloo, the rough sleeping in the 90s. Well, in the noughties, we ended that. We ended rough sleeping. And from the conversations Tom and I have had with the government, I'm confident working with them, we can end rough sleeping again in London, this time for good.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We've got another question here regarding the large number of vacant council properties across London borough councils. Is this being addressed by the London Mayor?
Well, there are a number of reasons. Firstly, these are council homes rather than mayoral homes, but there are a number of reasons why a council property could be empty. Sometimes they're just in very poor condition, and the council hasn't got the resources to basically improve it so it's habitable and livable. One of the things that, again, we've been doing from City Hall, the Deputy Mayor Tom Copley and myself, is lobbying the government, saying, look, if you were to give the councils the money to refurbish these homes and bring them back into use, you'd be saving money on housing benefit, paying a private landlord. And the other thing we're doing is this phrase, it's called estate regeneration. What it is supporting a council to regenerate an estate, sometimes demolishing the entire estate, Charlene, and rebuilding them to make sure you get better quality homes, which means cheaper builds because they're energy efficient, better quality. We require two things. There are two conditions we attach. One is you must consult your residents via a ballot before you regenerate the estate to make sure they want to do so. And secondly, there must be no loss of council homes. There must be, at the very least, the same, if not improvements, if you want to receive support from City Hall. And that's led to almost 40 estate regenerations over the last 9 years, often leading to these empty council homes being brought back into use, but often even more council homes being developed for local residents to use. I'm a firm believer in homes for Londoners, first dibs for Londoners, and if residents can see they'll get something out of these developments, they'll be more willing to consent to regeneration taking place.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Thomas Tyrrell.
Thank you. This is a direct consequence of exactly what I just spoke about with building the wrong number of homes. If we keep building new homes that are 1 and 2 bedroom, this doesn't address council waiting list needs because these are families largely coming out of overcrowded properties. They don't want a studio flat. They don't want a 1-bedroom flat. They don't want a 2-bed flat. They want a family home. They need family housing. And the amount of developers I've spoke to who said that they give councils, they make allocations for council and then they have to end up selling those properties anyway, that the councils have to give them back because they don't meet the need. We've got to stop this fixation on number of units, which encourages developers to build rabbit hutches, and we need to have a bedroom target so we can get the family homes that we need so we can address these issues.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if we can take, there's an individual second row in with sunglasses on or glasses on. If we can take the paddle number, I can't see the number, paddle number 1. It's there, thank you.
Can I ask I live in a blind accommodation here. I'm going to pass it over to my chairman of the Tenants Association. Andrew.
No, I'm having difficulty. Can you hold the microphone? Yeah, yeah. Is the Mayor aware of the desperate need for accommodation for blind and vision impaired people within London? The Thomas Pocklington Trust charity that owns Pocklington Lodge, which is situated within this borough, are selling the building with no guarantee that it will be continued to be used for the use of blind and vision impaired people.
Thank you very much for your question. Mr. Mayor.
So, Charlie, what I can undertake to do is arrange for my Deputy Mayor to speak to the Residents Association to discuss that particular issue, and we'll take that casework forward.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. We have come to the end of the section regarding housing. Thank you very much. Our next topic is London's economy. So I'll take 2 questions from the floor and I'll take a question online. Lots of hands shooting up. Paddle number 3, there's a lady just on your left-hand side with a white top on. To your left, yes, on your left, there you go.
Thank you.
For young people, how can you guys ensure that we'll be able to create a life here in London? Because at the moment, the cost of living makes it absolutely impossible. Like, it's not just for houses, but it's also for like parking, for any sort of activities that anyone wants to do. It costs way too much for anyone, so why would any young people want to stay in London? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We take another question from the floor. We've got a gentleman in a pink shirt and a navy blue blazer. We can do panel number 6. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I have lived in Greater London, Mayor, for close to 20 years now. I'm a maths teacher. I took a break because my mother was terminally ill outside this country. Since then, it's been now 2.5 years. I cannot get employed as a maths teacher. We have tons of agencies who take 1/3 of the money of the dedicated maths teachers like myself, and it's now for last 5 months, I'm registered to 4 agencies and I have no work.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question from online. I'm a proud European. Why does no one talk about Brexit and the impact it's had on our economy? My friend's business has had to stop exporting to Belgium as a result, and no one is talking about this. Thank you very much for everybody who's commenting and who are posting questions online. Thank you so much. So to round up, Mr. Mayor, it's from the young lady that's just over there talking about London being very expensive and how young people are supposed to create a life here. A maths teacher who said there's lots of agencies, but he's unable to find work as a maths teacher within London, and also to talk about the impact on Brexit and businesses in London.
Thank you for all those questions. So the first questioner, so one of the concerns I have, it goes back to the housing issue, is if you think back the last few generations, it's been the case the next generation's got it better than the last one. It's always been the case. And I worry your question's alluding to a challenge we have, which is the generation below me may be less well off than my generation, which is unusual and exceptional. It's not the norm. And that's one of the conundrums and the challenges we've got to address. Housing's one of them, but having high-skilled, good-quality jobs is another one. What is the future of our country post-Brexit? In my view, it's high-skilled, well-paid jobs. And outside here, the West Tech Corridor, the work Imperial is doing a good example. So what we've done is the last year, Howard Daubers here, my Deputy Mayor for Business, has been working with businesses, with councils, with others to draw a London growth plan in terms of making sure we're creating, with the private sector, the jobs for your generation that makes you stay in this city. The good news, over the last 9 years, we've worked with the private sector and helped create more than 300,000 jobs. Our plan over the next 10 years is to help create more than 150,000 jobs, what's called the Inclusive Talent Strategy. But you're right. Cost of living is a challenge in relation to housing, in relation to utility bills and so forth. And that's one of the reasons why I say high-skilled, well-paid jobs. It's very difficult to stay in London if you're in a low-skilled, not very well-paid job. And that's one of the reasons why the London Growth Plan is about high-skilled, well-paid jobs, but also those sectors where we think they're growing sectors. You've seen today the announcement of £31 billion investment in our country from the tech sector, AI, quantum computing, robotics. Those are the industries where we think the jobs will come, but also mean that you'll be able to continue living in the great city in the world. The other piece of good news is our city's still growing. Over the last 9-10 years, our city's been growing. That's a sign of health. You know, that shows people want to move here and live here. But the challenge is making sure your generation can carry on living here and don't leave London when you want to start a family or when you want a house with a garden. And that's one of the reasons why I said house is the biggest challenge we face, twinned with high-skilled, good-quality jobs. And we've got a plan to address both those issues. So I'm really sorry about your experience, both the loss of your mum, but also your inability to get a job as a maths teacher. I've got family and friends in the teaching industry. We've got a chronic shortage of maths teachers. And so can I suggest, Charlene, the gentleman emails my office, marks it for my attention. I'll speak to experts. My Deputy Mayor is an expert in terms of education, and we'll try and hook up expertise to support the gentleman who's a maths teacher. The last question in this round was, in my view, the elephant in the room, which is in my view, the biggest act of economic self-harm a country's ever committed, the decision to leave the European Union. I mean, in the context of security concerns, we know what's happening in Ukraine and expansionist Russia, but also you've got our biggest trading partner, a market of 500 million, who we've cut our nose, spite our face, and left the European Union, and then we're complaining. Now we're outside the club, that those inside the club are imposing conditions on us to have the benefits of that club. I mean, what do we think would happen if we left the European Union? Free access to goods and services.
But in terms of how potentially the London Mayor...
I think we've got to make the best of a bad hand. And I think when I see the work Nick Thomas-Simons, David Lammy, Yvette Cooper are doing, they're trying to make the best of a bad hand by trying to get deals with the European Union. Let's be frank, they will never be as good as they were before. It's like somebody leaving a tennis club and then complaining they can't book a court as a non-member. Well, you chose to left the tennis court. And so I can arrange for you to have a day pass at the tennis court. You've got to pay for it. It ain't as good as being a member. That's Brexit for you.
Thank you very much. Assembly Member Polanski.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm Zach Polanski. I'm a London Assembly Member for the Green Party. I want to start on Brexit because I agree with the Mayor. This has been a catastrophic decision, both for the entire country, but particularly for Londoners. Where I disagree with the Mayor, though, is we don't have to take the bad hand. We have choices. And actually, with his platform as Mayor of London and my platform, I'm arguing that we should be rejoining the European Union when the conditions are right. And we need to make the case for that and not just expect it to randomly happen. Apologies for being late, but I was actually speaking at the Stop Trump rally. And this is directly associated with this question, because by cutting ourselves off from our closest European neighbour, it's meant the Prime Minister has had to keep pushing this idea of a special relationship with this man who is a misogynist, a racist, who does not reflect British
Assembly
values.
Member Polanski, can we please keep our answers talking about the capital and not necessarily regarding Trump?
Sure, but just seeing him in London or seeing him wanting to come visit London is a real issue, and Brexit has caused that. I take your point. On young people, this is a huge issue because it's every subject we've spoken about tonight, from housing to education to the climate crisis. And the truth is this. The Mayor said we live in one of the richest countries in the world, the 5th or 6th, but most people are not feeling that way. Since the pandemic started, billionaire wealth in this country has doubled. Meanwhile, our poorest communities, particularly our working class communities, are really struggling due to the consequences of decades of conservative austerity and now a continuation under this Labour government. Now, the Mayor's not in charge of that, but what he could do is call out the two-child benefit cap. This is a policy that is pushing young people into poverty, and we know the biggest sign of poverty later in life is to grow up in poverty early in life.
But Assembly Member Polanski, you sort of already alluded to the reason why I'm going to stop you right there. You said it's something that the Mayor has no control over. So can we answer questions regarding what the London Assembly and the Mayor are in charge of?
So what I want to see the Mayor doing is calling for a wealth tax, a tax on multimillionaires and billionaires, so that London can take that wealth and make sure we're using it for our public services.
Okay, are you going to answer any of the other questions?
No, that's all good.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we go to Assembly Member Gareth Roberts, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to focus mainly on Brexit. I agree that it is the single biggest act of economic self-harm which has ever been inflicted on a country. But there are options. Assembly Member Polanski mentioned rejoining the EU. However, that is some way off. What we really should be doing and talking loudly about is rejoining the single market. We should be talking about rejoining the customs union. We've seen economists after economists have said that this is one of the single biggest ways to drive growth into this country. So as soon as we can get back into those mechanisms, then we will at least have a chance. At the moment, we're fighting with one hand behind our back. One of the things which I regularly hear from my I'm also the leader of Richmond Council, by the way, and I hear from my largely conservative council colleagues is that if we were to introduce a tourist tax, then that would harm the tourist economy coming into this country. Now, at the moment, what very few people know is that anybody coming in from the EU now has to pay a visa of about 40 quid each to come into this country. And in a couple of years' time, you will have to pay a visa to enter the EU. And to say that a tourist tax is going to have a detrimental effect on the London economy when tourists are already having to pay 40 quid to get in, which they wouldn't have to if we had freedom of movement, is something that we should be taking incredibly seriously. I give full credit to the Mayor because he has been one of the more vocal Labour members speaking out on behalf of the rejoining the EU. Unfortunately, every time he does speak out, he seems to get called into Sir's office at Downing Street and given a sharp smack over the wrists. I hope he keeps talking out, because it's only by having senior Labour figures making the case either for EU rejoining or for customs union and single market that we may get some movement from Keir Starmer, who seems to be doing absolutely nothing at the moment.
Thank you very much. Assembly Member Anne Clark.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anne Clark. I'm a Labour and Cooperative Assembly Member representing Barnet and Camden. I just want to first start with the question about young people, because I think when we have economic hardship, when we have a world that is increasingly unaffordable, it is our young people who will feel it the most. I have two children in their early 20s, and I don't know how they're ever going to leave home or how their friends are ever going to leave home. But what I would say about London is we have a mayor who is out beating the drum for London everywhere he goes. We have a creative economy that is growing. We have life sciences that call London home. We've had South by Southwest hosted in London for the first time. That's the first time ever outside of the US. And it's really important that London continues to be at the cutting edge, outperforming where, frankly, we should be, given Brexit, given the pandemic. London is out there ahead, leading the way. And I'm really proud of our city, and I'm really proud of our mayor for leading that charge and banging the drum for London. But I do think, coming back to all of it we've heard tonight, obviously on housing, we have to work together to really make housing genuinely more affordable so that younger people can stay, grow up in London, and grow older in London, because it really is the best city in the world to live in. In terms of Brexit, where we are tonight, 70% of people in this borough voted to remain, as did I, as did many of us on the stage, although I suspect not all of us. It's very, very clear. Sorry, it's very clear not all of us voted to remain. But what's very clear is that we need stronger trading with the EU until that time comes when we can rejoin the EU, which is, we are still proudly Europeans, and plainly, our economy has suffered from leaving the European Union.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member, I will go to you, Susan, since you're so aghast by that last comment.
Thank you. I just am amazed that my colleagues don't all know where I firmly stand, because normally I'm quite vocal about where I stand. And one of the worst things that has happened to London and the rest of the country is this dreadful jobs tax that the government has put in, the increased national insurance. To give you some sort of idea, this has just cost the Metropolitan Police £60 million. So that gives you a flavour of the sort of cost. Can you imagine what it costs Tesco, Sainsbury's and Boots? And so what do? They lay off staff. And we've had some figures, the ONS has said there's 51,000 fewer under 25s in paid work. Young people, I know I was young once. When I was young, when I wanted more money to go out to do things, I worked extra time. I got a Saturday job. I got an after-school job, even in those days, to get extra money. They're the sort of jobs that are going because of this dreadful job tax. The problem is the government just does not have any work experience. None of them run small businesses. Our mayor has put up costs dreadfully. Since he's come in, his share of the council tax precept has increased by 75%. The ULEZ charge in outer London, not inner, in outer London, has affected the poorest the most. And when you drive down places like Bexley and Bromley, you wonder what the hell he thought he was doing. They're nothing but farms down there. All of it has been proven that it's made no difference in areas like that. Of course it hasn't. And gradually people have been changing their cars to be more efficient in any case. But the biggest problem in London at the moment is this dreadful jobs tax that this Labour government have put in.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Bassam Mahfouz, please.
Thank you. And I've got to disagree with Susan, you'll be unsurprised to hear, but the biggest problem in London is the housing crisis. We've had this young person here come tonight and ask us, what are we going to do about it? Because the cost of living crisis, the biggest cost that most young people have, anybody in this city has, is the cost of housing. And we've heard time and time again from the Tories, we had Thomas Turrell contributing twice on the housing debate. He said, and I quote, "We don't want to talk about the numbers." I'll tell you why he doesn't want to talk about the numbers, because the numbers, in terms of how many GLA-funded affordable homes that have been built in London, if we go borough by borough since 2016, if I look at neighbouring Labour Ealing, where I am, 5,500. If we look at neighbouring Labour Brent, 5,500. If we look at Tory Hillingdon, 1,473. And if we look at his borough that he's responsible for, since 2016, less than 1,000 affordable homes built in his borough using GLA funding. That's why they don't want to talk about the numbers, because they know they're not delivering for the people of London.
Right. Assembly Member Emma Best.
You want to talk about numbers, let's throw out some numbers, Assembly Member Mahfouz. Since he has had the money, the £4 billion for his affordable housing programme between 21 and 26, the Mayor has not even completed 1,000 homes. And there is more. But wait, there's more. He didn't even build almost half of them. He bought houses that were already built. Ridiculous. You want to talk numbers, those are your numbers, and that is what is hurting people. And I wanted to speak on young people because that's the most important thing I think we're facing in this city. And I don't really have the time to go back every single section of the questions we've had today, which is why it is so hard for young people in London today. But there are two things that the Mayor can do. There are two things. He hasn't spoke out once against the national insurance increase that is crippling young people in London. We see what this has done. Since April, 51,000 more young people are out of work. Since Labour come to power, 66,000 more young people are on benefits. They are being screwed over by this government because they're taking away their opportunities. And the last thing he can do, and it might sound fluffy, but it is so important. When you're a young person in this city, you need something positive. You need something that makes living in the rubbish flat, doing that crap commute, you need something that makes it worth it, and that's nightlife. He needs to get a hold of these councils, which are licensing clubs and pubs like their libraries, and make this a 24-hour city. Make us a global competitor again, because now, after we've had 3,000 venues closed since 2020, we aren't competing globally, we're competing nationally, and we're losing to Manchester and Liverpool.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're out of time on the economy. So for the remaining time, we're going to take questions on topics that we haven't covered so far. So that could be things like culture, health, or education, for example. So it's going to work in the same way as before. I'm going to take 2 questions from the audience and 1 from online. We've got a gentleman in a dark grey/black jumper. Middle section towards the back. It's behind you, paddle number 3. He's got his hand up. Other side. Right here, there you go. There he is.
Hello. I've lived in Hammersmith and Fulham my entire life, and I've got no links to the Middle East or Palestine. But I'm very worried about the situation in Gaza and what is happening there. And I'm sick of the pictures I'm seeing every day of kids, elderly, women, and just generally civilians being killed and starved to death. Will you call it what it is? And what more can us Londoners do to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves?
If we could take another question. If we take the gentleman in the blue gilet, who's 2nd row or 3rd row from the front, that's paddle number 3.
Good evening. This covers 3 of the topics that we've talked about this evening: clean air, transport and the environment. The taxi industry in London has met all of the requirements of the clean air. You've now got the cleanest cab fleet in the world. We're in trouble because current to buy a vehicle, £100,000 with a finance. We've had cross-party support from everybody behind you and alongside you for you to use your Green Finance Fund to enable us to borrow the money from you to buy these cabs at low interest or 0% interest. Your deputy mayors are in support, various people at TfL are in support, and apparently it hangs on you, Mr. Mayor, to give it the say-so. So can you just tell us this evening that you'll do it? We can then get to 100% clean cabs, and you'll then have the cleanest cab service in the world, 100% clean and green, and you get your money back.
Thank you very much. So we have a question here from online. It says, it's a very hard time to be a young person. What are you doing to support children and young people in London deal with the stresses of today's world and protect their mental health? So to round up, we had a question regarding Gaza. We had a question regarding the Green Finance Fund being used to help buy clean cabs. And the final one is regarding young people and mental health.
I think what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. When I see the images of the children starving, 20,000 children have starved because of the policies of the Israeli government. When I see the health system in Gaza collapsed, when I see the lack of supplies reaching people in need, when I see the famine that is man-made, when I read the judgment, interim judgment of the ICJ, and then see a UN Commission report this week, I think it's inescapable to draw the conclusion in Gaza we are seeing before our very eyes a genocide. The second question from Steve McNamara is in relation to the second question in relation from Steve McNamara, who represents the LTDA and does a very good job doing so. I'm not in charge of the particular financial of the Green Finance Fund, but let me take that away, Steve, and come back to you in relation to where they are, because there's a criteria for the allocation of the Green Finance Fund. I don't want to undermine the criteria of the team working on the Green Finance Fund, but I promise one of us will come back to you over the course of the next few days and weeks in relation to what the criteria is. And I want to thank you because you're right, more than 60% of our taxis, more than 60% are now zero emission capable, and that's partly due to your leadership, but also due to the can-do attitude of our black cab drivers, who are a huge asset to our city, but I recognise the challenges they've faced over the last 2 decades. So let me take that away and come back to you over the course of the next few days, Steve. The third question is in relation to young people and mental health, and I think what should compound our concern, Charlene, is the COVID pandemic and that generation of young people who didn't go to school, didn't get a chance to go to youth clubs mixed with other young people, and as it was, the rise of social media and the challenges this has in relation to young people. Add to that, the pandemic has led to a real crisis in terms of mental ill health and young people. From City Hall, though we're not responsible for health, we've been investing in things like Thrive London, in apps and so forth to work with young people directly, but also we're now funding financially mental health support in schools. Really important to give young people that support in schools because many schools have had shrinking budgets, so they've hollowed out what used to exist before. But I think it's really important in terms of young people to make sure they've got the support they need, but also the skills to address some of the challenges that they've faced in 21st century, bearing in mind social media, phones and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Assembly Member Joanne McCartney.
Yes, can I pick up the question around mental health and young people? We do know that particularly since the pandemic, the numbers of children awaiting CAMHS appointments has risen. And so the Mayor's been doing a number of things around this, one of which is we have our Healthy Early Years and a Healthy Schools scheme. We have more than 4,500 schools and early years settings taking part in that. And that's trying to support schools with training resources, but also trying to give confidence to young people to embark and develop their own programs about what they want to do to improve their confidence and well-being. The other thing that the Mayor's announced only this week is this new programme around mental health support in secondary schools. This is a pilot programme where we're working with 8 boroughs and a number of secondary schools, trying to see what we can do to really embed really good practice in those schools so that not only the children but also the staff are better trained and better equipped to deal with issues that they need to deal with in this increasingly complex world. So we hope to have some new news on that, and we've rolled it out to 3 boroughs this week. In a few more weeks there'll be another 3 boroughs, and then more in the new year as well. So just watch out for that. It's a really exciting new scheme.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Kripesh Hirani.
Thanks, Charlie. I did want to come in on the point of mental health as well. So I sit on the Health Committee, and it's an area that the committee has looked at in the past as well. And I think the support that has been provided to children at all levels, so we're looking at prevention, but also around access to services if people do have mental health crisis, has been poor over the last decade or so. So we want to see that turned around. But one thing that I would like to say is that to turn that around, we need support for our local authorities that provide some of that critical support, but also support for our NHS partners delivering those services. And part of the issue I have with people criticising national insurance increase nationally is that £25 billion of that is going directly to our NHS. And if you plug in your postcode on the BBC waiting list tracker, plug in the postcode for this area, you'll see that waiting list access services is now above the national average, whereas before this time last year, it was below. So we're seeing some of those improvements in services, but to do that, we need to invest in prevention and services and aftercare for our young people.
Okay, thank you. Assembly Member Caroline Russell.
Thank you, Chair. The question about Gaza, what we are witnessing on our screens is a genocide, and it is very, very good to hear the Mayor call it a genocide tonight. I think it may be the first time that has been said. In terms of Steve McNamara with the question about the Green Finance Fund, I really hope that the Mayor will think, and all his teams will be thinking very seriously about how black cab drivers can access their vehicles using the vehicles they need to buy to help maintain the clean air in London, and also to maintain an accessible form of transport that is, an iconic part of London's street scene. So please, all of you sitting in the front row and Mr. Mayor, please listen to that plea. And then in terms of young people, I think one of the things that we really need to keep investing in is more youth services. And it is just so important not only that we invest in youth services, but we invest in the people who are working in youth services so that they have career options. And that's something we heard loud and clear on the scrutiny we did on the Police and Crime Committee just a couple of years ago, when we were looking at violence affecting young people and the need for real career paths for people working in youth services is something that it will be very good for, again, for the Mayor's teams to be thinking about whether they can do anything to support that.
Okay, I want to get a couple of more Assembly members in before we wrap this section up. So very quickly, Assembly Member Garrett.
Thank you. I think the situation in the Middle East is extremely concerning. I would make 2 observations. I would tend to agree with what the Mayor said, but I think there were 2 points that he missed. The ceasefire and the peace that we would all like to see existed on the 6th of October 2023, and it stopped existing on the 7th of October 2023. And I don't think we really need to forget what happened and why that was. And there were people on the streets of London celebrating that day before Israel had done anything except be a victim. And the Mayor admitted that in his answer. He's put his hand up. I'm sure he's going to mention it. And secondly, the hostages nearly 2 years on who are still being held were omitted. And I'm sure the Mayor would like to mention for those. Foreign policy is not something we can solve at the London Assembly or the GLA or even the Mayor. The biggest concern that I have in London is for people in London not feeling safe going around, whether that's, in particular in relation to this, it's both Muslim and Jewish Londoners, all of whom should be able to travel around, go about their business completely peacefully without being harassed, attacked, verbally abused, assaulted, or have their places of worship or places of business or homes attacked. That, I think, is a very serious problem, and that is the thing that we can tackle and that I would like to see tackled.
Okay.
On children and young people, I think the single biggest problem, so I have 3 children. I've actually just dropped my eldest off at university this week. I think she's fine. So I've seen...
But we are not your therapist, Neil, just so...
Yes.
You know.
What I've seen is, for those of you who don't have children or who don't have, also my wife works in the school, I think those of you who've not been connected to schools over the last few years will have missed the unbelievable impact, which continues extremely severely to this day, of the pandemic and the lockdowns and children being cooped up at home, not being at school, not socializing and being socialized. And I think it's really important to mention that not once during that time did the Mayor ever call for schools to be reopened. He always adopted what at the time was seen as a precautionary principle of saying, let's be careful, let's not let children back into school, and the severe damage that that was doing to those children, and frankly many women whose position at home that they were then stuck in was extremely unpleasant. I think we must not forget that.
No,
and we must not forget that the attempts to reopen schools, the attempts to get children back, once we had a functioning vaccine, that is what should have happened.
But what I do have to say, Assemblymember Garrett, we are now, 5 years on from that, so we do have to look at the present and what it is that we can achieve now. Finally then, Gareth Roberts, Assemblymember Gareth Roberts, you are the final person who is going to speak, so make it good, make it short, make it sweet.
Thank you, Chair. There is one person who can end the genocide in Gaza, and that is Donald Trump. And I hope that London MP, keeping this London MP Keir Starmer will use every opportunity whilst the state visit is happening to make the case to Donald Trump to end the genocide. On the issue of youth services, one thing which many of you may not be aware is that the government is currently consulting on the Fair Funding Review 2.0. This is going to lead to massive cuts, tens of millions of pounds of cuts to councils across London. Hammersmith and Fulham is one of the major net losers, as is Richmond upon Thames, as is Kingston, as is Hounslow. This will have an impact on the delivery of children's services. This will have an impact on the delivery of camp services for young people. We need the government to look again at the figures, because if they don't, it will be the young people that will suffer, because we simply will not be able to afford to provide the services that they need to get the very best start in life.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all we've got time for tonight. Thank you so much to everybody who's attended in person, and a huge thank you to everybody who has joined us online. Don't forget to keep an eye on the website, www.gov.uk, london.gov.uk, for details of the next People's Question Time. If your question wasn't answered, you can email your question to mayor@london.gov.uk, and you should receive a response within 20 working days. Remember to complete an online feedback form via the link displayed on the screen. There are some posters around the room as well. Good night, have a safe journey home, and we shall see you next time.